All right, here we are with our Algebra 2 Unit 4 test review. These are the test topics for tomorrow's test. And these are the 6 topics that we're going to take a look at here for this particular video. And we'll begin here with the first problem, which is to solve a system of equations from a word problem. And that word problem looks like this. The high school track team ordered sweatshirts and t-shirts. The girls team ordered 32 sweatshirts and 41 t-shirts for $1,112. The boys team ordered 24 sweatshirts and 47 47 t-shirts for $964. The price per sweatshirt and t-shirt. So the first thing we want to do here is write a system of equations. Maybe let sweatshirts be x, t-shirts be y, x, and y. So that system is going to look like this. 32x plus 41y equals 1112. 24x plus 47y equals 964. All right, now we can solve that system of equations using any method. We could use elimination, we could use substitution, we could use equal values, entirely up to you. However, the numbers here are a little tricky. They're not as easy as what we're used to. So, you could do it the way that I do it, or you could do it a different way. That's up to you. So what I'm looking at here, however, is the fact that 32 and 24 are both, let's see here, multiples of 8. Okay, so 32 is 4/8, and 24 is 3/8. So I'm thinking through elimination in my head, but it seems to me as though no matter which way we do it, we're going to end up with messy fractions. So let's go for substitution or equal values. I'm going to get x by itself. So x will equal 1112 minus 41y all over 32. Okay, and then here x will equal 964 minus 47y all over 24. Now the reason I didn't actually divide the 32 into 24 is because with equal values method I can let the x's equal each other, and now I have a proportion that I can cross multiply and solve. This saves me from the headache of some decimals, fractions, so forth. So I end up with 1112 minus 41y over 32 equaling 964 minus 47y over 24. Okay, cross multiply and then solve for y. So as I work through that problem, I end up cross multiplying. All right, I reduced my 24 and my 32 to 3 and 4 because they're both divisible by 8. I distributed. Oops. Whoa. Okay. Oh, there we go. I distributed my 3. I distributed my 4. Okay, I solved the equation for y. Ended up y being 8. So that means a t-shirt is $8. And then I substitute that $8 into either of these two equations to determine the price of a sweatshirt. Okay, so when I do that, 1112 minus 41 times 8 divided by 32. You just type that in your calculator and you end up getting $24.50 for the price of a sweatshirt, and that's my final answer. Graphing a system of inequalities. So we take a look at a system of inequalities here. So we have a parabola and we have a linear. So you can graph those any which way you'd like. However, I'm going to just use graphing shortcuts. I'm going to use graphing shortcuts here to graph the parabola. Just makes it a little bit easier for me. So it's going to end up being y is less than x plus 1 squared. Where does the plus 1 come from? Well, I take this number divided by 2. Okay, then I ask myself the question, 1 squared is 1. I don't want 1, I want negative 8. So I have to subtract 9. What does that do? Well, it gives me the vertex. Negative 1, negative 9. And then from there, my points on a parabola are always the same. Okay, and because this is just a less than symbol, that means I'm going to have a dashed line. So all these little pieces you got to remember when you're graphing a system of inequalities. Also, because it's an inequality, I'm going to end up shading one side or the other of this parabola. Now, a lot of you go ahead and shade right away. I wouldn't. All right, what I would do is determine what side I'm going to shade on and maybe just use little arrows to notate that. So here, y is less than is all I'm looking at. Less than would be lower than this parabola, so I'm going to shade on this side of the parabola. Okay. I'm not getting too crazy on the shading because I still have to graph a line. I'm going to graph the line in red. This is in slope-intercept form, which makes it very easy. I'm going to go down 5. I'm going to go up 2 over 1 a few times, as many times as I need, down 2 over 1. And again, this is a dashed line because it's not equal to. And this inequality says y is greater than. Well, greater than means above. So I'm shading above the red line. All right, now the instructions are to shade your final region, and the final region is where both of these are shaded. So you'll notice the blue and the red are both shaded here. Okay. Down here it's just blue only. In here is just red. Okay, here is neither. Okay, and finally down here we have red and blue again. So all of this space here would count. All right, below the parabola, above the line. All right, okay. Next, we have solving a non-right triangle. This is a throwback here from geometry. So I'm given this triangle, there's no right angles. Anytime there's no right angles, we're automatically thinking law of sines or law of cosines. Okay, if you don't remember what those are, you're going to have to look them up. Make sure you have them on your study sheets. This particular scenario, or how do we know which one's which? Well, I will tell you this, that law of cosines is great when you have side, 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 or when you have side, angle, side. Okay, we don't have either of those here. Okay, we have angle, side, angle. We have angle, angle, I guess you could say. So that means law of sines is going to be the best choice. Now, the way law of sines works is we have sine of angle A over side A equals the sine of angle B over side B. However, what we're looking for here is an angle and its opposite side. So we know the 57 and the x is going to be involved. However, we don't have the opposite side of the 34. All right? But we do have the 12 down here, but we don't have its angle. So we're going to have to incorporate another piece of geometry, which is the triangle angle sum theorem. That says all the angles in a triangle add up to be 180. So that means we have 57 and 34. Okay, and that gives us a total of 91. Okay, then we're looking for the difference between 180 and 91 for this angle right here. That's going to end up being 89. So that angle there is 89. Now we have 89 for an angle and 12 for a side and 57 and x. So we make our proportion. So I'm going to have the sine of 89 over 12 equals the sine of 57 over x. And I want to cross multiply. I do not want to calculate anything until the end. X sine of 89, because if I do, I'll be rounding, and my answer will be farther from the truth. Times 12, or equals 12 times the sine of 57. To get x by itself, I will divide by the sine of 89. Now I can determine what x is by taking 12 times the sine of 57 and dividing that by the sine of 89. So let me get my calculator here quick. So when you're using the calculator, the first thing you want to check is to make sure your mode is in degrees. Mine is. All right. And now I can go ahead and type this all in at one time. So 12 times the sine of 57, okay, divided by the sine of 89. And enter. I get a side length for x of, typically sides we round off to 2 decimal places. I don't know if you learned that in geometry. We talk more about that in pre-calc. So this will be 10.07. So x ends up being 10.07. Okay? Blast from the past there, non-right triangles. Next, we have multiplying or dividing rational expressions. So I have a rational expression here. Now, the first step when we did this is to go ahead and factor everything that can be factored. And also to remember that we never want to divide by a fraction. Okay? That is prohibited. All right? Just like other things. Okay? We never want to do certain things. Dividing by fractions is one of those things. Instead, we would like to multiply by the reciprocal. All right, so as I factor these and find the reciprocal and multiply by the reciprocal, I'm going to end up with something like this. Now the original one here on the left doesn't change. I have x plus 2 and x plus 2. That's what x plus 2 squared means. All right, on top I'm going to end up with 3x and x, and then I need a 5 in the middle there, so it's going to end up being 2 and 1. Okay, so that's a positive 5. So that means the 6 is positive, the 1 is negative. And then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of this one. So I'm going to flip this and factor it all together. So this bottom one here is difference of squares. So I end up with x plus 2, x minus 2. All right, because x times x is x squared. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Middle term cancels. 3x plus 6 can also be factored because both are divisible by 3. So I pull that 3 out. What am I left with? X plus 2. Okay, then I want to go ahead and cancel out anything that these two have in common, top and bottom. So this x plus 2 would cancel with this x plus 2. Let's see, this x plus 2 would cancel with this x plus 2. And then otherwise, everything else pretty much stays the same. So my final answer is going to be 3x minus 1, x minus 2, over 3, x plus 2. Nothing else cancels. Some people get crazy and want to make up their own math. I'm not going to mention any names, but Mac might cancel 3 and 3. But that can't happen because this 3 here is with the x, with the minus 1, whereas this 3 here is standalone. All right, these x's can't cancel, the 2's can't cancel. They have to be identical. So this ends up being our final answer. Arithmetic sequence. So we have, consider the arithmetic sequence 54, comma, 135, comma, dot, dot, dot. Write the equation for the sequence, assuming that 54 is the second term. So the first step here is to determine the growth between 54 and 135. So we're adding 81 there. So that's my growth. Okay, then I want to imagine this almost as a table. So I have 54 here, 135 here. To write my equation, I have to go all the way back to 0 term. So if I subtract 81 from 54, all right, and then subtract 81 from the answer that I got there, which is negative 27, I end up with negative 108. Okay, so when I write my equation, remember arithmetic sequences are y equals mx plus b. M is growth. You got to know this, people. This is pre-alg. All right, b is term 0, or the y-intercept. So when I plug in my answer here, I end up with y equaling 81 x plus negative or just minus 108. Determine if 378 is a term in the sequence, show work to justify. Now you have a couple options here. You could do this algebraically, or you could just keep adding 81, all right, and then see if 378 comes up, all right. But the mathematical way there, the algebraic way, is to let this equal 378 and solve for x. Now, when we're doing that process, we're looking for something specific, all right. We're looking for a whole number and a positive number for x. So in solving this, I end up getting x equals 6, which means yes, 378 is the sixth term. If I would have gotten a decimal or a negative number, 378 would not be part of the sequence. Exponential word problem. Oh boy. Bailey has a truck that was worth $45,000 when he bought it in 2010. The truck is now worth $9,622. Write an equation of y equals a times b to the x to represent the value of the truck since 2010. So what we're given here is actually 2 points. Okay, we're given year 0, $45,000. All right, and he bought it in 2010. It's now 2014, so that means year 4, it's worth $9,622. We don't know anything in between here, but knowing these 2 points allows us to use the stat and exponential regression function of our calculator if you want to. It's obviously the easiest way, the quickest way. However, we can do it algebraically because this is the initial value. All right, this is the multiplier, which we don't know. We know x, we know y. Whoops, year 4 and 9,622. So if I plug in everything I know, 9,622 equals 45,000 times b to the 4th. I can solve this for b. I would divide by 45,000. Okay, so I'd end up with, let's see here. Now this is a rounded answer, so you don't want to delete it from your calculator. You want to leave it in there. Okay, so I have 9,622 divided by 45,000. And I could jot something down here if I wanted to, but what I'm going to have to do is take the 4th root, so that means 4 math x root of my answer, second answer, and I end up getting 0.68 for b. So my b value ends up being 0.68. So to answer the question in part A, the equation would say y equals y equals 45,000 0.68 to the x. By what percent is the truck depreciating? A lot of people are tempted to just say 68% here. That's not what it's going down by. That's the multiplier. You got to figure out the difference between 68% and 100%, and that's the depreciation rate. Okay, that ends up being 32%. How much will the truck be worth in 4 more years? So we take our equation and we substitute 8 for x. Okay, so 45 grand, 0.68 to the 8th power, and I end up getting, let's see here, $2,057.23. Sounds like it's time to trade in. And that looks like it's it. So let me just double check to make sure I didn't skip anything. Yep, exponential word problem was the last one. So good luck in your studies and good luck on the test.